Hi, my name is Jane. We might have met before, but you're about to rediscover a lot more about me. Maybe even more than you bargained for. This whole thing is like a brand new Corvette, still riding along the information superhighway. You put your strong, muscular hands around that controller and make me excited like it's haptic feedback. And I promise to do everything your little heart desires, but only if you check out all the new features and special contents. Just imagine you can watch me kick my sleazeball boss's ass, all in the new Plumber Vision. But if you make the wrong move, you could turn me into a nun yet again. Imagine that, me, a nun? No way. Really, it's all up to you. Who knows what you'll do with that little hot pad of yours? It's got way more buttons than the last time we met. I like a man who knows how to push the right buttons. Point is, life's a game, and this game is all about life. You do right by me, and I guarantee to do right by... Oh, whoa, what the hell are you doing? We're not gonna do this again. You are a sleazebag, and this is not the 90s. Do you think I'm stupid that I don't know what you're... Welcome back to Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Now let me remaster your face.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties returning is an example of how YouTube culture and memes can manifest themselves into a real thing.
I think the most common question when seeing that Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is coming back is why? Why on earth?
Like, to me, that's almost more enjoyable than getting to release this project. Just knowing that there are people out there thinking, why are they wasting their time doing this?
If you're just purely happy that Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is coming back, I think we need to have a conversation, because you shouldn't just feel happy. You should have questions, and you should be asking those questions. I ask myself questions every day while I'm working on this project, and I will for the rest of my life.
I think the project is very interesting from this perspective of who else would bother remastering the worst game of all time to the level that we are trying to remaster it, in terms of adding all these extras and these exclusives and these, bonus features.
One of my favorite things about limited run games is that it seems that they have this ability to bring back things that shouldn't exist. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Somebody somewhere thought, like, what is the silliest game we could ever think of, like, releasing on modern platforms? And for the longest time, that was probably Night Trap. And, like, what's even sillier than Night Trap is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, because, that is really hitting the bottom of the barrel.
There's no cash grab in Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. This is actually one of the hardest jobs we could possibly give ourselves, because we now have to give you a reason to buy the worst game ever made.
The whole time I'm thinking to myself, are we really putting this out? Like, who is asking for this?
I think it's really important to kind of recontextualize games that maybe culturally up until this point have only been the butt of a joke. Like, everyone knows Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, but does anyone actually know Plumbers Don't Wear Ties?
How many people really know the bad games or have had a chance to play them? And I feel like, from a historical perspective, somebody needs to be making these historically bad games accessible again, so people can satisfy that curiosity that they have in understanding why these games are so bad.
That's why I really like to see projects like these, is to sort of recontextualize things and put them in a different space than just, haha, this is stupid.
It's funny, it's weird. There's a lot of bad stuff in it, though. There's stuff that hasn't aged very well, and I think people can learn a lot from sort of the bad that is in there, and just making sure that they don't try to replicate it.
I mean, that's why I support publishing it. We're making this game readily available again. And I think we should, because it's important. Remember the bad parts of your history. Just remember them in context. And I think this is a good context to engage this game.
When you go to a museum, not everything there would have been considered high art at the time of its release. We understand this, and Plumbers is certainly not high art. but it's a part of our culture, right? And it represents something that was really unusual for the console space.
Anything that brings us closer to all video games of all history being available, I think is a very noble effort, even when it results in the release of the worst video games.
There's a strong argument for the preservation of the worst games ever made being just as important as the best games ever made.
Sometimes those interesting experimental efforts are more interesting to look back on than something that was, just really good and, hit the ball out of the park right away. The kind of noble, ambitious failures are as interesting to look back on as the successes.
Those games, they can contextualize and tell you a slice of life of when these games came out and what the industry was like when they came out.
Being able to actually look back at it and understand like kind of what they were doing, what our market was like at the time, why does this exist? When you're looking at this as a complete sort of time capsule, I think it becomes a lot more compelling.
I hope that what we're doing with this game can contribute to what its final legacy will be.
I think, like myself, there is a subset of people that find this era of video game history like just fascinating. I gather that those people are the ones that are actually like, okay, I'm kind of curious to see like what the heck are they going to do with this thing?
Most people I think kind of got it. And this made me very happy for the reasons of like game preservation that come to a place where people kind of were like, yeah, this is awesome. It's not just about having these greatest 8-bit games put in a compilation. It's not just about that anymore.
I think the time is ripe for games like this to be reevaluated, and specifically this one, because it is so unusual for, in terms of its content and its structure.
I'm kind of hoping it inspires people to make games that are just as wacky and zany as this. Hopefully not still images, but, get the vibe that this game kind of emits and see if they can try to replicate it with something that they want to make.
So I want to say thank you for supporting an effort to remaster a game that nobody would have ever expected to get a remaster. And your support of projects like these will enable us to do more things like this in the future and remaster more games that are unexpected, forgotten, but historically significant to some level. Games that other people might not touch because they're bad or they're not games that have this huge, wide amount of appeal. And I really appreciate people who will support endeavors like that.
Hi, my name is Jane. We hardly know each other, but that's about to change. You're going to get to know a lot about me, maybe even more than you imagine. This whole thing's kind of like a blind date. I mean, here we are in your brand new Corvette, riding along the super information highway. Put your big muscular arm around me and whisper sweet things in my ear. And I promise to do whatever your little heart desires, but only if you make the right moves. Just imagine watching me get propositioned by my sleazeball boss. Why, you could even make me strip for him. But if you make the wrong moves, you can turn me into a nun. Imagine that. Me? A nun? Ha! I don't think so. But it's really all up to you. God knows what you'll do with that hot little mouse of yours. Point is, life's a game, and this game is full of life. You do right by me, and I guarantee I'll do right by you. But please don't turn me into a nun. I'm not that kind of girl. I've got a reputation. Around town, I'm known as Microwave Jane, because they say I heat up faster than any micro. And when the fire chief visited, he wrote up a new code and made me wear a smoke alarm between my thighs. And then the Coast Guard complained that I was creating tsunamis in my waterbed. And then the Pope visited and said I was the only person on Earth that had been on my knees more times than he had. Now the president's filed a restraining order claiming I have a romantic interest in the Washington Monument. Oh, you men can be so vicious. Look at me. Just look at me. Do I look like that type of girl? Well, if you think I'm that type of girl, you got another thing coming, mister. Because I don't do one-night stands, I don't date musicians, and I don't roll over just because you bought in this game. Fair warning, I'll be resisting your every move and enjoying your every mistake. I trust it won't be the first time you made mistakes with the opposite sex. Now listen up, the rules of the game are real simple. You see, I meet this guy in the parking lot. Now you are supposed to identify with this guy. I mean, you in your own perverse, simple-minded way are supposed to be him. Got it? Now if you make the right moves, I end up with this schlep. That is, I end up with you. But if you get real lucky, you end up saving me from the bad guy. You become my hero. And as the hero's reward, guess what? You get to take me home and have your own degenerate little way with me. Of course, if you make the wrong move, you may just end up playing with your little mouse the rest of the night. It's all up to you. Are you game? Then come with me and you'll soon discover why plumbers never wear ties when I'm around.
Don't keep me in suspense. Give me the full story.
Whoa, deja vu. I've seen this already. First decision, please.
Don't keep me in...
Yeah, it's me. Leave your message at the beep and I'll come back to you.
It's your mother. Now get your ass out of bed. I know you're there, John. John? I said get up, John. John, if you don't pick up this phone, I'll be in your face in 5 minutes.
Yeah, Ma.
What are you wearing today?
My birthday suit.
Very funny. I want you to wear that nice tie I bought for you.
The polka dot tie? Get out of here. That sucks.
What did you say?
It's seersucker. I hate seersucker.
Polka dots are not seersucker. Just wear it. It'll make a good impression.
On who? The rats? Ma, I'm a plumber. Remember?
Just do it for your mother.
Ma.
John.
Yeah, okay. Okay, whatever you
now,
want.
Now, what have you done with Amy?
I got her boiling in garlic oil.
Don't get smart with me. Why haven't you asked her out?
Ma, I think it's pretty obvious.
What did you say?
I said she's pretty, but it's obvious I haven't had time.
Well, you better make time, mister. You two are perfect together. She'll make a nice little homemaker. Mark my words, it's a match made in heaven.
I think I'll wait till I get there.
Stop smart-mouthing with me, young man. Why is it I haven't seen you with any woman? Why is that, John? Don't you like women anymore? John, are you gay?
No, Ma. I'm not gay.
Thank heaven. Then what is it with you? Why haven't I met any of your girlfriends?
None are right for you, Ma.
You mean of all the women out there, you can't find even one to marry?
One's easy. I was going to marry 3 at the same time. Cheaper in the long run. Figure at least one will last me a lifetime. It's like the warranty they give you when you buy a water faucet.
Cut the crap and listen to me. It's time you got married. You need children. I need grandchildren. I need my only child to bear fruit. And in my lifetime, don't you love your mother?
Ma, just drop it, okay?
No, I won't. Amy's perfect for you. Poor thing's just waiting for you, John.
She's not my type.
And what is your type? Some biker slut? You hate me. Don't you? You hate my guts. Well, don't you? Go on, admit it.
Ma, it's just...
I'm sick and tired of your excuses. Now I'm having Amy over for dinner tonight, and I want you there.
Well, I'm busy.
You be there at 6 sharp, mister.
Ma, you're making me late for work. Love you.
You
Bye.
hear me, John? I said 6 sharp.
Bye.
I'm expecting you.
Jane? Jane? You there, Jane?
Hello, Daddy.
Where are you, Jane?
You called me, Daddy. Don't you know where I'm at?
How the hell am I supposed to know that? Now, where the hell are you?
I'm home, Daddy.
What the hell are you doing home?
Earth to Daddy. Come in, please.
Why the hell aren't you married yet, Jane? In that last scene, that bitch of a mother told her son to have kids. Now I'm telling you, I want some too. Your clock's a ticking. Now why the hell haven't you been productive?
I haven't had time, Daddy.
For Christ's sake, girl, how long does it take these days? You ain't that busy. Now, damn it, Jane, you get on the stick and make some babies for your poor old father before he dies. Honey, why don't you come down and lodge with me Friday night?
The lodge? Those guys are all geeks and dorks.
Yeah, well, maybe they're geeks and dorks, but they can make babies in less time than it takes you to put on shoes.
That's just the problem. Daddy, I gotta get to my new job.
New job? What happened to the last one?
Oh, all the guys kept hitting on me.
What? Did you hit him back? You should have hit him back. Who the hell were they? No one hit my daughter.
It's okay, Daddy, it's okay. It didn't hurt. Love you. Have a nice day, Daddy-o.
Wait till I get my hands on him. I'll kill him.
Whoa! It's 8 o'clock and I'm seeing a 10. What I wouldn't give to do her plumbing.
Whoa, I'd call that better living through chemistry. This is Harry Armis. Welcome aboard. Please extinguish all smoking materials during this story, because it's going to get hot enough as it is. And fasten your seatbelts, because I'm about to turn this story over to you. Your assignment, should you accept it, is to get these two lovebirds together. You know how difficult it is in real life. One wrong move, and you're sitting home on a Saturday night. One wrong move here, and the consequences for these lovers could be dire and unexpected. Fair warning, sport. Go ahead, make their day, and your choice. But you better make it damn good. Remember, we're keeping score.
So, these two...
Jane may be daddy's girl, but she's no slouch when it comes to getting what she wants. Besides, John's really a whim. Jane makes a move on him before he can count to 10. Watch out, John.
These two aren't ready to meet each other yet. Have them do it later on. So, who do you want to make the first move? If you want John to do it, hit A now.
Hi, my name's John. I'd like to make you, meet you.
At least he speaks his mind. Hi, I'm Jane. God, he's cute. Great smile.
Jane? John and Jane. Corny. I guess I could change my name to Tarzan.
You know what? I really have to go, but it's nice meeting you, John.
Wait. What are you doing later? For lunch? Can I buy you lunch?
I can't seem too eager. Let's see how he handles rejection. I don't think so.
Wait. How about dinner? A weekend in Paris? 5 minutes of conversation. I promise I'll be good.
Hey, sport. Harry again. John made the first move just like you wanted him to, and look what happened. She's slipping from his grasp. We know she'd like to meet him. She knows she'd like to meet him. But does John know she'd like to meet him? What's a guy to do? It's up to you, sport.
John throws caution to the wind and pursues Jane. Be careful!
Do girls actually like guys who are really aggressive? I don't think so. Have John wait later on.
What a smile! What a bod! She's perfect! A 15. You jerk. You should have gone after her. She was just playing hard to get. What if you never see her again? I know. I'll put a note and my number on her windshield. Nah, she's not gonna buy that. She gets hit on every day. Damn! I should have gone after her. Now I'll never see her again. Shoot, I gotta get to work. No, damn it, I can't. This is more important than work. I'll just wait here for her. Nah, she'll think I'm a jerk. But who cares? God, I hate rejection. She's worth the risk. I can't miss out on this. We're too perfect together.
Your qualifications are outstanding, your recommendations superb. And yes, I know I promised you a job, but what happened was completely out of my control. Your position was canceled just an hour ago. I'm sure you'll find another job soon.
But Mr. Thrasher, I came all the way from El Monte. I was looking forward to this job so much. And I do love downtown LA. I mean, I don't like the muggers or the dirt or the slums only 2 blocks away, or the trash or the homeless or the poverty or the crime or the potholes or every other person asking for a handout, but I really do love LA.
There. Please, call me Mark.
Oh, God, this is the most humiliating experience of my entire life.
Oh, don't worry, Jane. If you're looking for work, you'll have lots of humiliating experiences.
Oh, but isn't there something here for me? I'll start in the mailroom. I'll empty trash. Can I clean up offices? I'll even make coffee. I can work my way up the organization. I just need someone to give me a chance, please. Mr. Thresher, I don't have a lot of money. I was counting on this job, praying for this. Oh, God, Mark, I'm desperate.
Life isn't that harsh. Give Jane something to hope for.
Poor Jane. She got turned away.
Note, you must be 18 or over to take a look at this decision.
You know, perhaps something can be worked out after all.
Yes?
Take your clothes off, Jane.
I beg your pardon?
You know, we get at least 200 qualified applicants for every position here. It's those people who do that little extra thing. They're the ones who get ahead.
Take my clothes off? You can't be serious.
I'm not whistling Dixie, Jane. Now, if you're serious about this job, you'll follow my first directive and remove your clothing.
Here? Now?
Read my lips.
No one told me about this part of the interview. I remember when I was just a little girl and I got lost in the park and I felt so alone. I couldn't find my daddy. He was nowhere around. No one was around. I just sat down and bawled my little head off until...
Take your damn clothes off!
Now see how your sick curiosity led Jane into this mess? What kind of perverted monster are you?
Jane says no to this disgusting proposal.
If you really enjoyed the shower scene in this storyline, check out this decision.
Jane says...
You promise I'll get the job if I do this one thing, Mr. Thrasher?
This little gesture will prove you're a team player, Jane. You have my word you'll get the job.
Well, I guess it'll be all right this one time, won't it?
Of course it will. You'll be very happy here working under me.
Well, okay then.
Why don't you get comfortable? Take a seat in that other chair. Now that's better. That's the spirit. I knew you could do it. Hope you don't mind being videotaped.
Oh, Mr. Thrasher, Mark, I don't mind if you don't.
Ugh!
Show this tape to your wife, you animal!
You think I'm an idiot? You think you can waltz in here with that perky little face and those bouncy little breasts of yours and you get whatever you want? I'm gonna teach you a lesson you'll never forget. You little bitch, no one does that to me.
Run, Jane, run!
A damsel in distress? Chased by a killer wielding a letter opener? Well, sport, do you think you can handle this choice without getting the lowest score in the history of this game? Who the hell are you?
I'm taking over this story.
Over my dead body? Take that! You're not taking over the story!
No, it's mine!
It's my story!
Fine,
Damn it.
okay, I'm taking it over!
Give it to me!
No, it's mine! Phew! Finally got rid of that obnoxious character. And that horrible music. Name's Thelma. I'm what's known as a takeover artist, wanted in 30 states for hijacking fiction. Probably seen my face at the post office for terrorizing those Book of the Month Club romance novels. Now, if this is the first time you've had a story hijacked, well, buckle up, 'cause I'm in charge. Now, let's review the story up to this point. I'll just look at the choices you've made so far. Yes. I see. Well, what happened there? I don't see how you... How could you do that? I don't believe it. How could you make such choices? Were you raised in a barn? These are the most disgusting series of plot choices I have ever seen. Let me look at your score. You deserve every minus what you have gotten, and even more. You will hear from me again at the next choice.
Run, Jane, run. Run, John, run. John's not going to resort to violence. It's not politically correct these days. Choose this decision if you think he's man enough to try something else. Run.
Help me, help! Run, Jane, run! me, help! Run, Jane, run! Jane, I'm here! Hold on!
Son of a bitch! Ooh, wait till my daddy gets a hold of you!
Call the police!
Whoa, no police. Don't call the police.
You're going to jail for what you did to me.
What'd he do to you?
He wanted me to strip for him to get a job.
You're disgusting! Go, call the police!
Wait a minute. Whoa. I can make you an offer you won't refuse. There's no way you'll refuse it. It's been proven in many, many movies.
What? A real job? Like in Working Girl?
No, I'm offering you a lot more than that. Try $5 million.
$5 million? For what?
One night with you.
I cannot believe how disgusting this story is. In the name of women throughout the world, I demand this story be stopped right now. I'm sorry, but I cannot allow this sexist trash to continue. I am going to liberate... What are you doing here?
So much for that liberation front. I'm back in control now. No one takes over my story. Men have been beaten, kicked, slugged, and spat on throughout this sorry tale. I'm telling you, I've had it with these uppity women. They can take over businesses, they can take over the damn government for all I care, but the one thing they will not take over is my story. And this story ain't over till I say it's over. Now let me see how you screwed up this time. Uh-huh. Just as I thought. You know, I give you a simple little task like getting these two lovebirds together, and look what happens. I hate to imagine what your love life is like. Now let's see if you can save Jane from yourself.
How could anyone refuse? Jane goes for it. Who wouldn't?
You know, Jane's really not that indecent. Choose this decision now.
Who do you think you're talking to? Some bimbo? Who the hell do you think she is?
Hey, let the lady speak for herself.
Tell him hell's gonna freeze over before you'd accept such a ludicrous offer. Jane, I love you. I loved you the moment we met. I waited for you. I idolized you. I've seen you in my dreams.
It is a lot of money.
But what about us? I couldn't stand it. Just knowing you were with him. Even if it is only one night.
What's one lousy night? What were you gonna do? Buy me pizza and expect the same thing?
No, of course not. Jane, it's not that way. I don't want you for a night. I want you for a lifetime. I've been searching for you.
Freudian slip?
That was an egotist, didn't you? I'm going to keep that in the script. I'm going to use that. I'm going to paste that together and use that.
Okay. All right, ready?
Oh, that's pregnant.
Okay.
All right. Down the top, page 65.
Jane, it's not that way. I don't want you for a night. I want you for a lifetime. I've been searching for you. I mean, okay, maybe you're not perfect. Maybe you do like money too much. Maybe you are a daddy's girl. And maybe you are spoiled rotten, but you can't be bought. That sort of thing only happens in movies.
Who do you think you're kidding? Happens every day in the streets. How about 1,000 for a couple of hours?
Sure thing, buddy. Your place or mine.
Whoa! You're disgusting.
Then you two should be perfect together. He's all yours. Come on, Tiger, let's leave these lovebirds alone.
Wait a minute. Can't leave me here with her. What about the police? Call the police.
Deal's a deal. You called it.
See, Thrasher, you can buy love. You just proved it.
Don't worry, honey. He'll get his money's worth.
Help me. You can't, wait a minute. You can't leave me here.
I want to thank you for what you did. That was very brave. No one's ever done anything like that for me.
Oh, it was nothing.
Did you really mean what you said? You know, how you felt about me?
I've never felt like this about anyone.
This is so crazy. I feel so overwhelmed.
I love you so much. It's such a crazy world. If anything should happen, if something should keep us apart, oh, kiss me, Jane. Kiss me as if it were the last time.
Well, congratulations. It's finally getting steamy in the asphalt jungle. I don't believe you've made it this far, especially with a score like yours. Has John won over Jane with his heroics? Will he finally turn his life around and marry the woman of his dreams? Or would you like to see something completely different?
Hey, give me the Hollywood ending. I'm a romantic person, you know.
If you didn't like the first choice, choose the second one.
Hey.
I've never felt like this before. Never.
Me either, ever.
Maybe we should go somewhere and park. I mean talk.
Yeah, I'd like that.
What, talk or park?
Talk, for now.
I'm just testing.
What about your work? I thought today was real busy for you.
You just cleared up my schedule.
John, I want to know everything about you. Where you live, what kind of work you do. That's so god-awful important. I like a man who takes his work seriously. I want to meet your mother and...
Jane, hold on a sec. I don't want us to get started on the wrong foot here. There's something you have to know.
Yes? What is it, dear?
Well, you see, it's about my work. I'm really a plumber.
Oh, I just love your sense of humor. You're such a joker.
No, I'm serious. I'm really a plumber.
John, plumbers don't wear ties. Now, come on, stop fooling around. I know. Why don't we get something to eat? I'm hungry. You have plans for dinner?
No, I don't have plans for dinner anymore.
Then why don't we go to my place? I'll cook something for you.
You cook?
Well, if it doesn't work out, we can call for pizza.
That sounds great.
What? My cooking or my pizza?
It doesn't matter. You've got me eating out of your hand already. Now, let's just pretend I was a plumber. Would it matter to you?
No, stop it. You're such a jokester.
I'm really a plumber. My nickname's Rooter. Okay, what if I was a janitor or a garbage collector? Would it matter?
John, I love who you are right now. What's wrong with being an account rep? What's the big deal? Why do you want to be someone you're not? Just be yourself, John.
I'm trying.
Just so long as you're not a lawyer.
Don't insult me, Jane. I'd rather be a plumber. Are you sure you want to meet my mother?
I want to know who's behind this. Give me the credits.
Wow, you really want to go through this again?
That's it, folks. Bye. I want to know who's behind this.
I think it's probably largely forgotten by people below a certain age that there was a time that seeing a video clip on a home electronic device, a digitized clip, was a novelty.
You're going to get to know a lot about me, maybe even more than you imagine.
The big promise of CD-ROM was that it had an amazing amount of memory capacity compared to a cartridge. And then the question was, what do you actually fill that memory with?
It felt like it was kind of limitless when it came to CD-ROM. It was so much storage for that time. You know, hard drives alone were usually just in like the tens of megabytes in the 80s. And here came like this little plate, and it was giving you 650 megabytes of data. And that was a lot at that time.
A good friend of our family was always really up on the latest technology. And he showed me a CD-ROM drive for the first time. No games at the time, but it was an old CD-ROM drive that you loaded with a caddy system. So you actually put the disc in this plastic tray, close the flap, slide that thing in, and it seemed like infinite data. So just the fact that you could cram it full of stuff, immediately in my head, I'm like, oh man, games.
I only saw that medium as music, and I just didn't understand how it worked. So it just didn't make any sense to me. It felt like when my friend showed it to me and put the CD in there, I just didn't believe him that it was games and it was going to work.
When I first encountered CD-ROMs, I was deeply skeptical on console. They were slow. They were slow to load. The FMV effects did not impress me after the first few minutes, especially since my first exposure to FMV was in the arcade with Laserdisc, where they'd actually been better done than some of the early examples there. I was very sensitive to loading times. Even though I used PCs quite a bit and was used to them in that space, I thought of consoles as an instantaneous place to play video games, and I separated those in my mind.
But certainly the game industry was ready for the jump that a cheaper medium would provide.
The memory inside cartridges is very restrictive. It's very expensive to kind of upgrade that. CDs opened this whole world of possibilities for really, really nice renders and even videos.
All the magazines had hyped up that you could have CD music and anime cutscenes.
I think it's kind of natural that that's the direction that it went, that all of a sudden when people realized that they could have hyper-realistic stuff, well, what's more hyper-realistic than pointing a video camera at someone? So, you know, you can get the best graphics on a CD that way.
So like video in the game space started with Laserdisc, right? And then it kind of went away for a while. And then now with the advent of CD-ROM, it was like, we can do this at home. And that's kind of what kicked things off.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties does not have a lot of actual motion, the motion part of full motion video in it. It tends to be a lot of stills, but you're still accomplishing that same kind of like, the graphics are these real people. They are not pixels, it's real people acting out a scene.
A full motion video game is a game that endeavors to use motion picture footage to tell video game stories and integrate into gameplay directly as opposed to simple cinematics.
To me, at the basest core, I feel like a full motion video game is something that gives me control over something that feels like it could have been a movie or a television show. The
video game industry hasn't always been something that's huge or taken seriously, and I think especially in this kind of like early 90s period, it was a time when people were like, well, what is serious? What is real entertainment? And the answer was Hollywood. So what if we just made video games like Hollywood? Then it'll be serious. Then it'll be like the real deal.
How can we display more advanced graphics than could realistically be done in real time? That was the idea.
Dragon's Lair, Mach 3, games like that, I saw that they were beautiful, but I also instantly recognized there was something different about them. And I was also really in at a young age to movies and was aware of the existence of Laserdisc. So how these games worked was not really a mystery to my little kid mind. I was like, oh, they're playing video clips. Okay. And even the idea of video clips was kind of a strange thing back then, but my head could wrap around it. I watched Dragon's Lair on demo mode over and over, and I was like, I get it. It's the same thing every time. Okay, they're just switching around the order.
It's limited in the sense that, I mean, you can only do as much as you've filmed. So you don't get the full sense of exploration that you get out of a game that's completely interactive. You know, you're basically funneled down a director's path in almost the same way a movie would, but then you have these branching paths that will allow you to see other takes that the director has come up with. So it's not as experimental or freeform as regular games would be. It's more guided, and I feel like that's a limitation of it. But I also feel like that opens up the game in terms of its accessibility.
Everyone's really kind of on a level playing field. Whether you're deeply into games or whether you're just, you know, someone's uncle, like my uncle, who had some games like that, like Mad Dog McCree on the computer.
Especially in the PC space, developers and publishers were always looking at how can we expand this out? How can we get dad playing video games and mom playing video games? Or, you know, anybody really. And there was many different types of genres and types of games, and I think FMV is just one of those things because it was usually not that complex, and it was designed to be like, hey, you like watching movies? How about you play one?
They called it Sillywood, the Silicon Valley and Hollywood coming together. Like, what if you could just be in a movie? What if it was a movie that you could play?
That's what I love about this era, because it was so experimental, right? Like, nobody knew. Like, this end goal of just getting people onto your screen, just seeing full color, or even just 256 colors representing people on a computer. That was nuts. Heck, even just still frames, right? Just a still picture. It sounds silly, but honestly, for that period, that was not a trivial thing to do on these machines, right? So all of this stuff was kind of coming together, and it just, you know, it created the FMV genre.
When you had CD-based consoles, at least that early, this was like the only type of game that you couldn't get on a cartridge.
So FMV was really a chance for people to say, look, we have all this space. Let's really put it to use with something you can't do in any other format. And FMV, you know, while it wasn't always great in terms of gameplay, it made use of the potential of that medium in a way that traditional games really couldn't.
FMV on consoles was the realization of that dream. The problem was it was a very clunky realization. It was a very limited realization. Some of that had to do with budgets.
You're kind of limited by the logistics and the realities of the actual cost of creating these things, especially if you're filming real actors and real sets.
The reality of it was that a lot of these games just weren't actually very fun. So if video games aren't fun and the production values aren't Hollywood level, then you just are kind of pushing buttons to a bad movie, which is not really what I think anyone had in mind.
You know, once you've gotten the entire story, then there's nothing else. And that's one of the good things about Night Trap, is that you can play through it several times and always see like some new stuff.
Night Trap is so honest about what it is that it's one of the best.
They took the concept of using security cameras and they plugged it into the game itself, where you would actually be watching something that happens that you don't have direct control over. You just had control over the feeds.
Developers, as often happens, saw an example of success in, say, Seventh Guest, in Night Trap, and these kinds of games that do use FMV in an interesting way, but kind of only got the video part of it, and therefore we quickly go into a realm of kind of very loose, like quick time-based video gaming. And so the games themselves became more limited in its genre than it actually needed to be.
It's good to go back and reevaluate and kind of understand what those games were about and what they could be, what people tried to make of them.
Even though we have so many more genres of games now and so much more technology to do this in a full 3D space, I think there's still the sense of that realism and the fact that our eyes connect with these characters in a different way, the fact that we know they're real. I think this can be used effectively still to this day.
Like most of the universe, my first exposure to Plumbers as anything but a legend I'd read about in places was James Rolfe on The Angry Video Game Nerd, dissecting it, and then just being like, well...
Saw that episode, didn't believe that there was any way that this game was actually real, then had to track down a copy of it and play it, and yeah, it's worse than that video would lead you to believe.
This isn't a game that was particularly well advertised, well regarded. It only became this weird cult classic really through, you know, the sort of YouTube zeitgeist. Like, it took on a life of its own by being such a bad game featured in this very popular YouTube channel.
I subscribe to something called Electronic Entertainment, E2, by the way, not E3. And then this magazine, and many other PC gaming magazines of the era, you'd flip through, you find all your normal games, no problem. Then you get to the back. You get to the back and you're going to start to find a whole selection of adult CD-ROMs. You'll see titles, you'll see advertisements. I actually got in trouble at school once for that, for having one of those magazines. They thought I brought in a smut magazine, but it was actually just for PC gaming. So in one of those issues, I saw something on this game once, and I just thought it was another one of those silly, sexual FMV games, right?
I do certainly remember that someone did a preview. It was not a review, but it was a preview. And I remember looking at the pictures, and I was really excited because I was like, well, I recognize that lady. She's a wrestler. And that kind of gave me a little bit of a wrong idea, maybe.
It's funny thinking about seeing it in a magazine because you probably saw like this still screenshot of the game. And in your mind, you're thinking, oh, this is all like moving video. but like what you're seeing in that screenshot is literally what you get in the game.
Plumbers was kind of ingrained into my mind around the early thousands as like this terrible game, the worst game of all time, as people would say. And it created this curiosity in me to play it and experience it. And I had that chance when I walked into kind of a glorified pawn shop in this area. It was a recycle shop, basically, and they had a 3DO with a bunch of games. I had no idea what the games were, but the lot for this thing was only $100. So I bought it with company money at the time, because I didn't have my own money. I just started Mighty Rabbit, my development company, and managed to convince my co-founder to spend $100 on this 3DO, because I was like, it's such a good deal, we got to get it. Anyways, we were flipping through the games, and Plumbers Don't Wear Ties was one of them. And I kind of instantly got excited, not only because it's a very expensive game, it was worth a lot of money even at the time, but because it was this game I'd heard so much about that was almost mythical at this point. And it became this kind of running tradition in the office. When we'd hire a new employee, we would make them play Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And I feel like that's almost abusive in a sense that we would make employees do that. But to us, when we were like a group of like 5 or whatever people, we thought it was funny. I don't do that now. I certainly don't make my new employees do that, but at the time.
You make them produce it now.
Yeah, now I'm making my employees make Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. So, that's a full circle.
The internet was in its infancy. People weren't just browsing this kind of light adult style content. So putting it on CD-ROM was probably seemed like good business at the time, but without a lot of money behind it.
I feel like that's the question, is how did this happen? Because at the time that it happened, it represents a giant step back in technology on a system touted as being more capable than what came before it, right? This game came out on 3DO.
To fully understand how something like this happens on a console, you need to look at the console industry as a whole. Up until the mid-'80s or so, consoles are pretty open-ended. After that point going forward, console manufacturers actually implemented systems to essentially require developers to adhere to their standards in order to publish the games. The 3DO, though, was a very different beast. So this was the brainchild of Trip Hawkins, who was the founder of Electronic Arts. Rather than just building a box called the 3DO box, they actually built a standard. And companies like Panasonic, Sanyo, and the like, they would then build boxes to the specification. But along with that, they essentially left it wide open. You didn't have to have the 3DO seal of quality. That was not a requirement on that. If you had the manufacturing capabilities, you could publish on 3DO. And that meant the wide variety of quality in terms of what appeared on the system was, it was interesting.
You get opportunists coming in and saying, okay, well, what do we need to make a video game? Well, there's no requirements that you have to really meet other than the fact that it has to run on a console. You have to be able to plug in a controller and make a choice, at least to start the game. And I guess that's it. So you look at Plumbers, and yeah, it is the bare basics of a video game, but a video game nonetheless.
Plumbers' format is very strange. The fact that you're getting these stills with what I've heard described before as sort of a radio drama.
Oh, kiss me, Jane. Kiss me as if it were the last time.
Did they only do it this way because they didn't understand how to get it to work with video? So they just said, let's just use photographs. It makes you wonder if they have some sort of video master of this stuff, and they're just like pulling selects out of each one.
I feel like they had no ability to capture full motion footage, digitize it, and figure out the technological component in actually making that full motion video run on the platform. It's a lot easier to just display an image or whatever.
The video codecs of that era were extremely rudimentary, huge in terms of file size. You couldn't get a lot of video in there. So it's entirely possible that they just at some point deemed that, okay, we can't do this on one disc. And by going with still shots, it basically allows them to tell something that's a little bit longer and has different branches. If you try to do it all with video, I'm not sure it would have actually been feasible on that single disc.
I would think that moving from still frame to still frame could be a beautiful way to make a video game. I mean, that's what Myst is. Myst is just a series of still images stapled together, and they're stapled together in a compelling way that made it one of the most successful video games of all time. So Plumbers doesn't commit a crime just by using that format. It could have been a very effective kind of storytelling game.
They kind of just went with the easiest route possible to produce this game on as little money as they possibly could. And I feel like that lends a lot to its charm because it's just so obviously low budget.
Even though it's a low budget game, you still need to be able to develop for this platform. And that was still a taller bar to cross compared to building a game for the PC at that era. So the developers of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties obviously had to climb enough of a ladder to get over that hump to actually be able to program 3DO software to get this released on the system, even if technologically it's rather anemic.
So the format just comes off as cheap. It's just another way to signal to you, oh, we didn't want to spend money on this, but you bought it. Haha. Wow, I didn't know things got worse than the holiday special. But they do. And it's Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
Man, I really don't know if it's the worst, but it's really, really, really far down there.
You have to steel yourself for this game when you play it, right? But it's certainly not something you're going to forget.
There is no contemporaries. There is no comparisons. It's just that bad.
Plumbers really is just as bad as everyone says it is. It's garbage. It is a grease fire. It is the worst of all worlds.
This game is always going to be remembered for being what it is, which is this extremely bad example of 1990s full motion video excess.
It was probably always meant to be a campy, weird game. I don't think anyone who was sitting in on those storyboard meetings was like, yes, a beautiful, flawless work of art that will color people's cultural ideas for the future. It's a campy game. You can have fun with camp, right?
The goofiness factor and the unexpected appearances, like a certain chicken man, it does result in something that's perhaps a little bit more memorable in a really dumb way, right? Like, make no mistake, it's not good, but it's not good in a way that is good.
I'm giving it too much credit, but in a way, I guess you could accidentally say that it is the first American-produced visual novel.
This style of game wasn't actually unheard of at the time, maybe in the US, but that was something that had been explored a lot on the Japanese side, where it was much more about still images, about reading, about audio, sound novels was what they called them in Japan. So in a way, it was almost a little bit ahead of its time, although it probably ended up being that way just because of budgetary constraints, is my guess.
Most of those adult games of the era, they didn't really try. At least what I've seen, by the way. I haven't gone through all of them. Let's make that clear right now. But the ones I've looked at, they tended to be either more like cyber or more serious. And this one was just kind of goofy. But then, some of the other stuff in there, like the abuse from the boss, for instance, it's pretty bad, right?
It is probably not the way we would depict women in very many scenarios today. It treads into some kind of strange and uncomfortable territory sometimes. But the fact that that she had a good time working on this game and that was very comfortable the entire time, it shows just kind of how inherently capitalistic this all was. Like they were just trying to make something that they thought would sell, and and they thought that putting a woman in these kinds of situations could sell, and maybe not a reflection of the moral values of the people involved in the project. I think nowadays, at the very least, there's an entire genre that's just meant to sort of positively portray those kinds of relationships, which is the otome genre. It's visual novels for women, essentially, or at least that's how it started. And this is very popular in Japan, and it's basically just kind of woman-forward romance. Just really kind of sweet. I mean, sometimes goes into raunchier territory, but we have genres that kind of put this stuff into maybe a better context now that we, at least in the United States, didn't really have at the time.
You can go back and play the best games of all time over and over and over, and they're always going to age super well. But 9 times out of 10, the story behind them isn't anywhere near as interesting as these horrible left turns and these train wrecks that we come across.
It's really okay, I think, to take something truly awful and mock it. Look at it and say, this is the worst we ever got to.
People always remember the greatest games of all time. They're always going to remember the worst games of all time as well. Nobody's going to remember a game that was somewhere in the middle. Those are the games that fade into obscurity. But being the best of the worst is almost as good as being the best of the best in terms of being remembered.
It is zany, it is baffling, and it's just... it's Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
What always strikes me is that the plumber wears a tie. And it colors the rest of the game for me, because it's literally the title. And why is he wearing a tie?
There's this part where he's playing his plunger like a guitar. Even though it's done with just a few frames, you know what's going on. You know he's just wailing on that plunger, and you're like, what am I even doing? But you can't stop. That's the point where it grabs you, and you're just like, I need to see where this is going.
The mother, she's got the makeup on, like the green makeup, and she's got this big smile. It's the creepiest image, and I think the reason why it sticks out to me is because it's the image that I was using for testing for some of the upscaling stuff. So it's the one that, I think of Plumbers, that's the first one that pops up.
The most potentially problematic scene, just because we have to think about how we portray or contextualize that scene in 2022. That's the scene that first comes to mind. And it probably wasn't what I would answer if you asked me before we started working on this.
The opening credits feel like someone just got MS Paint and was like, let's just throw whatever we got in there, whatever stock photos we can get, throw some race cars in there. And then we will invert the colors.
The title screen is unbelievable that somebody put that together and just thought, yeah, let's ship that.
The first time I played it, what really got me was the host guy. You would make a decision and you would just come out and be like, well, I'm taking 29 million points off your score. And I'm like, where did this arbitrary number come from? What the hell?
The chase scene across Hollywood, just this walking, lazy, just whimsical sort of lollygagging about chase, if you want to even call it a chase. It looks absolutely ridiculous and completely full of non sequitur scenes. It's bizarre and I guess maybe funny.
Seeing a man in a striped suit wearing a chicken mask, it speaks to me in ways that it probably shouldn't. I don't know what it is about it, but people sometimes see holy spirits in their coffee foam and in the clouds. But I see a man in a chicken mask, and I kind of feel like that's my religion.
What have I done? What have I done? Oh God! Oh no! What have I done? I think my first impression of CD-based games wouldn't really be games, but they were more like computer softwares, like a movie catalog. And you would look up movies on there, it would give you some information, and every now and then it would have a clip. They would actually include a little clip, very low resolution, but it was a clip from the film. And it was like, wow, I'm watching a movie on a CD. Even CDs, for that matter, were kind of new. Just the idea of listening to music on a new medium was kind of interesting, because on a video game cartridge, there's a chip inside, or on an audio cassette, there's tape inside of it, but you don't handle it. You don't actually touch the tape. The CD was just, you're touching the data, so it seemed. So CDs kind of had a negative impression, sort of, between me and my friends when they first came out, because we thought you could scratch them real easily and then the game wouldn't play, or the music. I didn't know how far CDs would go. It was sort of a big question at that point. With the 3DO, I only knew the commercials. This is flying. This is real flying. All those childish games, we're all done with that now. Now we're going into real games. Yeah, I didn't know anybody who had a 3DO. I guess it was just too expensive. And I didn't really get a taste of it other than those commercials, not until I started doing the nerd videos. So I never heard of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties until the fans requested it. So I had to try it out, and it was so bizarre. And I didn't think it was possible to make a video of it, because what am I going to do with this? Most of the games I would review, I would be able to change the course of action by playing the game. There's many variables to what I can do and what I can show happen. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, it's pretty much just a bunch of images that you're going to see no matter what. I can't really change the outcome of the game a whole lot. You'd make these choices for the characters, and then that was about it. I didn't think it was going to make a very good episode, but I tried anyway. It's basically just a basic sort of reaction video almost. I'm just going through it and being like, what the hell is this? That kind of thing. There wasn't really a whole lot in my commentary other than just explaining what I'm seeing, as if I need like confirmation. Like, hey, is this what's happening? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? The panda head in the bedroom, the guy playing guitar with the plunger. There's all those weird filters, and the guy with the chicken head. And then there's that really weird, like uncomfortable scene in the office where the boss, this real sleazy boss, tells her to take her clothes off. And then she like surprises all of us, but she actually does it. But she has like a whip and handcuffs, and she's like, okay, if I'm going to take my clothes off, I'm going to do this to the point where you're not even going to be able to handle it. I don't know what the point of the whole thing was, but it's such a weird game. The voices in it were really peculiar. Like, who do you think should make the first move? Press A now. I don't think the game was really meant to be seen by that many people. I think it was kind of just like an experiment. Like, they even put an outtake in there just to show that they weren't that serious. An outtake that's in it. So it's an intake, not an outtake. I guess it's in there just to show you that they're having fun with it and that it's not really meant to be taken serious. I mean, how could it be taken serious? But the fan response was overwhelmingly positive. Even to this day, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I remember your Plumbers Don't Wear Ties episode. I really like that. Or, like sometimes even like that was the first one they saw. Like your Plumbers Don't Wear Ties episode was the one that introduced me to your work. And that's pretty amazing. And yeah, I don't know, that this game sort of has a legacy that's very special and very one of a kind. And I'm really happy to be attached to it in some kind of way. So yeah, I'm honored.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Basone, aka Hollywood, from the original Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. It was a TV show in the 80s. At a young age, I knew I wanted to do acting. I knew that, and I kept saying to Mom and Dad, I want to do this. I'd like to model. I'd like to give out Academy Award. I want to pose in Playboy. These are things that a 12-year-old, what am I thinking? I want to, what am I thinking? And my parents would just look at me and just keep moving on. So I figured, well, after high school, I'll do what I want to do. I got with an agency, and I just did one thing of extra work, the people that walk around in the background or they're sitting at the table. And then I went back to my regular job, which was drawing blood. That is a phlebotomist. That's not what I wanted to do. I'm sure that's what my parents would like me to do. So there just happened to be an audition. And I went home and I checked that audition. It was a sports TV show. I went after work. I got to the audition. There's probably 500 different ladies there, and this man, David McLean, says this show is going to be about women's wrestling, and I didn't know much about wrestling. I knew every other sport, but I'm like, oh boy. And I saw about 20 girls leave their seats and walk out the door, and I'm thinking, oh no, what do those chicks know that I don't know? But I'm young, you know, no fear. Went down to the audition. I went to the audition, which really was training. Mondo Guerrero was our trainer, and Mondo trained us Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday nights, so I could work and then train at night. As I kept going back, I noticed that there was less and less women, and they were weeding down 12 ladies. They wanted 12 girls to do a pilot. That's all they needed, and they had characters for each girl. So at the end of the day, I was one of the girls that they picked, and they called my character Hollywood. My tag team partner was Vine, and we did a pilot. We took it to syndication to NAPI in 1986, and at the end of January, they called and said, pack your bags, you're going to Vegas. And so I did the pilot and all 4 seasons of that show. And that's when I figured at that point, I'd like to do more TV shows or more acting. Stunt work was another thing that I got into after Glow ended, and one of my friends said, let's go on a set and I'll show you how you hustle a set. And all that means is you're going down to a set to give them your picture and resume and meet with the coordinator. So I started doing a lot of that. And then wrestling, I started my own company, Hollywood Productions. And so main thing was stunt work, some modeling, some acting, and then the wrestling. The wrestling I've done from day one. I never stopped. There was a restaurant that we used to work at noontime. It was a lunch lingerie show. And Michael used to be one of the patrons that would have lunch there and check out the show. I knew him probably quite a few times before he had asked about doing the game. And he lived in the area as well, and he came up to me and asked if I'd be interested in doing a video game. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. Plumbers don't wear ties. Okay, whatever. Sounded off the wall to me, but he wanted Jane to be like the lingerie show, and she was. And then I got to meet John, which is Edward. I'd never met him before, a model. I don't know where Michael found him, but we got along very well. Oh, and then Paul Thrusher. He was a friend of mine. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have the perfect guy, sleazebag looking type of guy to be the boss. And Paul, he was perfect for the part. Poor Paul, you're not a sleazebag, you know, but he was perfect. What I remember is just 1 or 2, maybe 3 trips to do this. I mean, look at it. You get what you put into it, I guess. There was a little video and then a series of stills through the game. We were definitely acting out the scenes because, as you can see, some of them look like he might have taken stills possibly off of the video and then camera shooting. There was no pre-production that I remember at all. Just show up on Sunday, 9 a.m. And the reason we did the weekends because everybody had jobs, plus I think Michael had a building that he worked at that was not going to have a lot of people around. And it was just Michael doing everything. I never had a bad experience through the whole thing. This was fun. He had my consent to say, yes, I'm going to kiss Edward now. Yes, you know, take off your clothes. I just, you know, now looking at it, I cringe a little bit because it's different. But everybody on set made you feel comfortable. It's a script. I'm following a script for a game. So I didn't see anything wrong with it when I was shooting it then. For the most part, we had fun, and I think everything went really smoothly. So I'm thinking the first day that we shot might have been in that parking lot at first. The footage of me driving, that's my car. However, when you cut back to the outside scenes there in Glendale, that blue car, I have no idea whose car that is. So we shot all the parking lot scenes first, and then we went into the building, and then, of course, running through the streets like we did. And I don't think that we had permits for any of the places. I think we were just like Ed Wood, on the run, let's go do it, quick. The interesting things is I love all the places that we went to. So I'm wondering, did I say let's go to Alvaro Street, let's go to Grauman's, the observatory, and those are like some of my favorite places to go to. So I'm wondering if I had any input in any of where we went. I'm pretty sure it was my idea to lay down across the tracks with the train. I know it was my idea. I'm like, that's the damsel in distress part right there. We're doing that. I think Michael let us go with the flow. He gave us a lot of space to do what we wanted to do. I think that's what made the shoot so fun, is letting us do what we want to do. Hey, may I suggest this? And I probably didn't say it as nice as that. I probably said, we're going here, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. And then here's another question. Did he tell us what I should wear? Did I pick out? Because those are obviously my clothes. There's no wardrobe, there's no hair, there's no makeup. I mean, look at it. We're just like, get out of the shower, throw a little makeup on, go. It was a great experience. The only thing I was trying to figure out was how are they going to put all of that into a game? And I never saw the game. You know, people finish with certain projects and people move on. That's going to be something that never will happen. That's exactly what I thought. Oh, well, we shot it. That's it. I never saw the game until the internet got popular and I started getting those emails and I'm like, what? Where? You saw this where? So I wasn't aware of the YouTube Angry Video Nerd guy. And I clicked on that. I was horrified at first. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? But he was so funny because basically he's saying these things. We're thinking them, but he's saying them out loud. If you listen to the language that he's using, and it's so funny, I had to laugh. So that was probably my first indication that this thing that we did in 1993 is this game. Either people love it or they hate it or they think it's funny. And you have fan clubs of Jane. And then I looked at the views. I'm like, this game is in the millions. People are actually checking this shit out. I'm sorry. But yeah, I hadn't thought about it in years. So to see this coming back up and to have somebody remember that, that's cool. So I'm getting a new set of fans that I love. And I can't wait really to meet them and talk to them all about and answer their questions, because I'm sure they're going to have a lot of questions. If you ask me would I do it again, absolutely yes. Of course. It was fun. No regrets. You can always say no to any situation that you're in. Stand your ground. I had to do that a few times during the 80s and early 90s. And I just, walk and go to the next audition, the next gig. But never be afraid to say no. Stand up for who you are. I always did that. Have an open mind, but I think you're going to have fun when you play the game, and you're going to go, oh, that's not so bad. What, they're saying this, they're saying that? I've seen way more than that. I think you'll love it.
I started trying to find the rights for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties back in 2016. And I thought that it was with whoever owned Kieran Entertainment, which was the publisher on 3DO. So I looked up Kieran Entertainment. I went through all of these records with the California Secretary of State. I found all of these business records that were associated with Kieran Entertainment. It was like Digital Stuff Incorporated and all these weird things I've never heard of. And I tried everything I could in my power to reach out to these people. I signed up for white pages. I got phone numbers. I cold called those phone numbers. I sent mail to the registered address of these companies, and the registered address of like whatever their most recent company was is actually just a random empty plot of land on the side of a highway. There is no mailbox there. There is nothing to actually receive mail. So of course my mail came back like 2 months later as undeliverable because there was nowhere to put it. Like, I almost feel like these people don't exist. I don't know, but I could not get in touch with these people. So after 4 years of trying that, I wrote to our lawyer and I said, hey, what recommendations do you have to figuring out who has the rights? And he was like, did you search the copyright database? And I guess I was just really stupid and I never searched the copyright database. I'd always searched the trademark database, which doesn't really provide you with a lot of information. But the copyright database will have emails occasionally. So I was able to find the copyright for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And then there was this name on it for the guy who had started United Pictures, which was the developer of the game. And clicked on his name, and I got some other things like a diet program he had developed. So I clicked on that, and then boom, his email address was there for this diet program copyright. And I was like, holy shit, I've got the way to contact whoever has the copyright. So I emailed him, and he was like, wow, I'm surprised anyone is interested in this. And, within a couple weeks, it was all negotiated and done, and we were able to pick up the rights to restore and remaster Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And I felt this weight lifted off my shoulders. I felt this, 4 years of effort just finally coming together.
We believe we can contextualize this game in an interesting way that will make it not only like the best way to consume the game, but to understand what it was, how it could have happened. We found that idea super fascinating.
So I discovered Plumbers at work. It was something that was floating around at the time, and Joe, he basically was like, hey, you want to know what this is? And he sent me the link to a video by Angry Video Game Nerd that I thought was very funny, very well made. And I was intrigued. I was like, if this is something that we're bringing back, I want to be a part of it.
When you look at a game like this, it's easy to assume from an outside perspective that, well, it is just still images. It is just audio files being played back. That seems like basically 2 lines of code. However, there's so much more to it because the actual timing of the audio and images is somewhat finicky. The tools back then were much more in line of doing some operations like this in terms of FMV gaming, in terms of audio playback. Nowadays, these engines are much more about pushing polygons and allowing for much bigger games. When you actually have to scale it down to something this simple, it leads to a lot of interesting challenges that you don't foresee.
Top level, when you're looking at what you need to do, it's pretty straightforward. But actually coding it out was a little bit difficult because Unity doesn't necessarily have like a timer function. You have to build all of that from scratch and make sure that things flow correctly into each other. So there was a little bit of headache of making sure that, okay, this scene needs to follow up after this scene. And sometimes you mess up. So you got to really go and figure out, okay, what broke.
There's some fan assets and sites that show a lot of the differences between the 3DO and the PC version, and then include information about like the timestamps and stuff like that. Things that made it super useful for us to very quickly break apart the game and rebuild it exactly how it was, right down to like the millisecond of how these things are timed out.
We were given a lot of assets from the older title, even lots of code too, but it was very difficult to understand how to implement that in something like GameMaker or Unity, so we had to start from scratch. One of the biggest and most difficult things that we had to figure out was allowing the player to essentially skip through some of the scenes, just so that they don't have to sit through one that they've maybe already seen. They can just skip right to the decision part of it, or just skip to the next scene. That was a little bit difficult, trying to get that to work with the timer, making sure that when we did skip, we reset the timer.
We made a decision early on that, like, obviously we never wanted to try and approach this game by just putting it back out exactly as it was. We don't think there's a lot of value in that package, even if you remaster like the photos and the one video that's in there. So it basically became like, well, what can we do to create a value around this? And the value we thought that made the most sense was playing it very straight, contextualizing and telling a story about how this game exists, finding the right people who would have something meaningful to say about it, and maybe using it to make a living history piece as opposed to just a remastered version of an old game.
You shouldn't spend money on that original version because it's hundreds of dollars and very hard to seek out. But with this limited run version, it is as easy as either downloading it digitally or preferably buying it physically to own in your own collection as this curiosity in video games. And I think that's the legacy it leaves behind, is that it's one of the biggest curiosities, especially in the Western hemisphere of video gaming. It's kind of like crazy that something like this happened. It's even crazier that it was brought back in 2022.
I like doing unexpected things, and I feel like providing a remaster to this level of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is a very unexpected thing. So that's really what has always been on my mind with regards to Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, but you know, if this is successful, I would love to be able to look into doing more with it, you know, if there ends up being demand for a sequel, a Plumbers Still Don't Wear Ties, you know, we could do that. Because I actually, you know, I was reading while I was researching the IP on Google that there was actually plans for a second Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, and some assets may actually exist for that floating around in the ether. But, you know, this kind of goes hand in hand with trying to find the IP. A lot of the people that worked on the game are kind of like lost to time. Even the people that I have found from that game, like they don't list United Pictures on their resume. So it's like, how do you find these people? You can't really. So I don't know if stuff for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties 2 will ever turn up, but you know, if there's a possibility to make a second one and, you know, the business warrants it, I would certainly do it. Again, I think that would be super unexpected.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties returning is an example of how YouTube culture and memes can manifest themselves into a real thing.
I think the most common question when seeing that Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is coming back is why? Why on earth?
Like, to me, that's almost more enjoyable than getting to release this project. Just knowing that there are people out there thinking, why are they wasting their time doing this?
If you're just purely happy that Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is coming back, I think we need to have a conversation, because you shouldn't just feel happy. You should have questions, and you should be asking those questions. I ask myself questions every day while I'm working on this project, and I will for the rest of my life.
I think the project is very interesting from this perspective of who else would bother remastering the worst game of all time to the level that we are trying to remaster it, in terms of adding all these extras and these exclusives and these, you know, bonus features.
One of my favorite things about limited run games is that it seems that they have this ability to bring back things that shouldn't exist. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Somebody somewhere thought, like, what is the silliest game we could ever think of, like, releasing on modern platforms? And for the longest time, that was probably Night Trap. And like, what's even sillier than Night Trap is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, because, you know, like, it's like, that is like really hitting the bottom of the barrel.
There's no cash grab in Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. This is actually one of the hardest jobs we could possibly give ourselves, because we now have to give you a reason to buy the worst game ever made.
The whole time I'm thinking to myself, are we really putting this out? Like, who is asking for this?
I think it's really important to kind of recontextualize games that maybe culturally up until this point have only been the butt of a joke. You know, like, everyone knows Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, but does anyone actually know Plumbers Don't Wear Ties?
How many people really know the bad games or have had a chance to play them? And I feel like from a historical perspective, somebody needs to be making these historically bad games accessible again, so people can satisfy that curiosity that they have in understanding why these games are so bad.
That's why I really like to see projects like these, is to sort of recontextualize things and put them in a different space than just, haha, this is stupid.
You know, it's funny, it's weird. There's a lot of bad stuff in it, though. You know, there's stuff that hasn't aged very well, and I think people can learn a lot from sort of the bad that is in there, and just making sure that they don't try to replicate it.
I mean, that's why I support publishing it. You know, we're making this game readily available again. And I think we should, because it's important. Remember the bad parts of your history. Just remember them in context. And I think this is a good context to engage this game.
When you go to a museum, not everything there would have been considered high art at the time of its release. We understand this, and Plumbers is certainly not high art, but it's a part of our culture, right? And it represents something that was really unusual for the console space.
Anything that brings us closer to all video games of all history being available, I think is a very noble effort, even when it results in the release of the worst video games.
There's a strong argument for the preservation of the worst games ever made being just as important as the best games ever made.
Sometimes those interesting experimental efforts are more interesting to look back on than something that was, you know, just really good and, hit the ball out of the park right away. The kind of noble, ambitious failures are as interesting to look back on as the successes.
Those games, they can contextualize and tell you a slice of life of when these games came out and what the industry was like when they came out.
Being able to actually look back at it and understand like kind of what they were doing, what our market was like at the time, why does this exist? When you're looking at this as a complete sort of time capsule, I think it becomes a lot more compelling.
I hope that what we're doing with this game can contribute to what its final legacy will be.
I think, like myself, there is a subset of people that find this era of video game history like just fascinating. I gather that those people are the ones that are actually like, okay, I'm kind of curious to see like what the heck are they going to do with this thing?
Most people I think kind of got it. And this made me very happy for the reasons of like game preservation that come to a place where people kind of were like, yeah, this is awesome. It's not just about having these greatest 8-bit games put in a compilation. It's not just about that anymore.
I think the time is ripe for games like this to be reevaluated. And specifically this one, because it is so unusual for, in terms of its content and its structure.
I'm kind of hoping it inspires people to make games that are just as wacky and zany as this. Hopefully not still images, but, get the vibe that this game kind of emits and see if they can try to replicate it with something that they want to make.
So I want to say thank you for supporting an effort to remaster a game that nobody would have ever expected to get a remaster. And your support of projects like these will enable us to do more things like this in the future and remaster more games that are unexpected, forgotten, but historically significant to some level. Games that other people might not touch because they're bad or they're not games that have this huge, wide amount of appeal. And I really appreciate people who will support endeavors like that.
So when it came to actually AI upscaling this game, that was a gigantic task that I don't think I was fully prepared for, but when I came into the company, I was the only one that had true kind of involvement in the AI scene. I'd worked in Japan, and in Japan I'd worked very closely with the advent of AI upscaling in anime and then visual novels as well. I had dabbled a little bit into doing real photographs, and generally that is not great. Even today, as we're recording this, it hadn't really gotten to where I needed it to be. And that was a big problem because we had about 800 images that then needed to go from 640 by 480 index-colored BMP images into fully upscaled, clear photographs. So when I sat down to plan this out, the company, Limited Run Games, had already tried their hand at using kind of conventional AI upscaling applications. There are some out there, they're very good. And the results that came from that was kind of twofold. So you could absolutely see there is something here. Trees, shrubbery, this kind of stuff was being reproduced, but characters, objects, things that very much catches your eye was plasticky and kind of, it looked like everyone was just wrapped in some sort of protective rubber. This is making everyone look much more icky, and we can't go over this. There was another AI model that had been put into use, and it made everyone come out like kind of fried chicken texture. And I was like, I don't think this is going the right direction. So what I decided to do was, I have the connections to get in touch with the actress. One thing I talked to Jeannie was, hey, I want to try something out here. I want to do an AI upscale. What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach or feed my own AI model and basically have it recognize you. But I need a lot of references. Can I use images of you? And can you supply them to me? And she was very happy. She was kind of like, this is really cool. And so we started to get to work. And it took me about 3 weeks to really create a model that I was satisfied with. The problem I had now introduced was that I had a model that was very good at recognizing Jeannie, but it made also Edward look like Jeannie. So I had to go contact him and say, basically, hey, I need a lot of images of you. And luckily, Edward also had a modeling career. So that was no problem. And feed the AI again, reconstruct the images. Now everyone looked like Edward much more. So what happened in the end was, basically I had 3 different AI models. one for Edward, one for Jeannie, one for backgrounds. The other actors were fairly prominent in their scenes so that the AI could do an approximation and I could hand edit all the inconsistencies. But for the general images, what I did was I ran a batch process once for every person and then once for the backgrounds. I would take those results and actually composite them together from their individual sources into one image and kind of edit around each layer and find, okay, this one did a better job reproducing this, and this. Together would form the full scene. That wasn't enough though. What was kind of becoming clear to me halfway in, I would say like 8 to 9 months kind of into all this, even though those original images are very low quality, they still retain kind of like a color temperature and overall quality of a 90s photograph, like a Kodak moment. Because this game is just a sequence of Kodak moments. So what I did was basically scan my own family albums, a lot of pictures from different times. You scan them at a high DPI. You go in real close. What happens? Well, you start to see what is kind of the grain, how colors are blending together. And I went in and I made a custom filter that reproduced that look, that feel, to then batch process on top of the images I now reconstructed. Problem now was a lot of those old images that I had basically reconstructed 6 and 7 months prior had color balances that was out of sync with what I now needed for this new filter, which was then going to like reproduce that look. All in all, it took about, I'd say about a year from the first image to the very last one to get this all in. But as you can see in the game, I think what we managed to do was even better than actually scanning the individual images that was taken back then. And the reason why we couldn't even do that was that the production, the original production, was done on 4 different cameras. Through someone on production, Giovanni, we realized the game had been shot across some sort of bigger like studio photo camera and also a running video camera, a VCR camera. There's film, Polaroid, and then there's actual photographs. And none of this really has survived. So even if we did have full access to the sources, we would have to comb through the actual video and find the stills. It's interesting in the sense that I think the game was meant to be video, but of course, for us doing this reconstruction, it meant we could only use what was in the game, and what was in the game did not lend itself well to AI. I'm pretty proud of it now though, because I think this is basically one of the first times that we used AI for actual real life photographs. So I think it's pretty neat, and I hope everyone playing it also enjoys it.